Coal of Africa's second quarter coal production fell by 24%, and that due to shutdowns and strike action at one of its mines in December. The miner says it will use Haohua Energy's $80 million cash injection to advance its coking coal projects. And we're joined on the line now by John Wallington, who's CEO of Coal of Africa, for more detail there. John, before we get into the details of this transaction specifically, I've highlighted some of the challenges that plagued your operations over the December period. Just what kind of capacity are we looking at now, and how's management of labour issues looking like at this stage of the game, just so that we get a sense of the kind of operationally sound environment you're working within?
Yeah, thank you for that. Look, I think it's important to understand that Coal of Africa really is an exploration player, and the future is an exploration program, and developing the projects in Limpopo. The issues that we had at Mooiplaas, where we had the first illegal strike and then the illegal strike and unfortunate dismissals and then rehiring under new contracts, etc., was a function of what's been happening in the country, and but that now has been amicably resolved, and the restructuring of that colliery is moving ahead, through the Section 189 process, and with a lot of cooperation from the union.
John, it's Lindsay in Cape Town. The investment we're talking about here, $100 million. I think it's fantastic that overseas investors should come to South Africa, bring money in. Goodness knows we need as much as that a week as we can get. Are there any strings attached? And if so, are those strings to do with security of supply, or is this just an investment?
Well, there's always going to be some strings attached, but it's not actually related to security of supply. There will be. We're now moving into the next phase where we will be just finalising our cooperation agreements on how we want to work together, and that will also include potential offtake of a portion of the product that comes out of Coal of Africa, or more than that. But I can agree with you. It was a very, very difficult time in the country. Globally, when this deal was being done, and of course the fact that Coal of Africa being a typical junior player at the moment, the risks are higher than normal in this current climate. So it was an incredible, really fantastic to get that money into the country and into the company, and hopefully it will now allow us to move forward with some more confidence, get the balance sheet strengthened, and at least move forward in terms of getting really moving forward and getting ourselves in a better position to get Mercado approved and the other geological assets in Limpopo.
John, how difficult is it finding backing like this from international investors specifically, especially with Eskom having declared coal as strategic resources and looking at coal now being sold within a band, no more than 10% rises in that coal price annually? How do you deal with something like that, and what kind of questions are you having to fend from foreign investors?
I think to some extent the strategic investment in coal might even be a benefit for new regions in the country, and I refer to the Waterberg to some extent, but certainly to the Soutpansberg. If the Limpopo Soutpansberg area is going to develop in the future, a significant demand from Eskom will help that. The primary product out of that area will always be the coking coals, and that'll. That has fantastic potential in terms of turning South Africa from an importer into an exporter. But there's a secondary product that can come out of all of those resources that can go to Eskom. And when one looked at the presentation from Eskom at the recent conference, the shortfall in tonnage from Eskom is significant and substantial, and it's going to require whatever investment is required to reduce that gap. So I can understand the rationale for it being declared a strategic resource, but I think to some extent in the Limpopo it could be a benefit, not another hindrance.
John, so when you saw Minister Shabangu announcing what she announced a couple of days ago, which we reported on Power Lunch, you weren't disturbed by it. You didn't think that this was perhaps the government saying, right, as a strategic resource, we're going to attach certain conditions to this, and therefore you will have to sell your future production to the government and to its 100% owned Eskom facility at a certain price. You're quite happy with this development?
Well, you're not going to. I mean, one of the slides I remember that Mr. Murakami put up from Eskom suggested that there's nowhere near enough investment in new capacity. Now, you're just not going to get that investment in new capacity if it's not commercially viable. So that's the first issue. There was a comment from her that said, we will not be stopping exports, that we need to try and protect the domestic supply. And the reason why I'm saying as a new area, the Limpopo could benefit is that the primary product is coking coal and metallurgical coal, which Eskom cannot use anyway. It's not something that you can say, well, you should put it into the power station. They just simply cannot use it. But it does free up a lot of secondary product for Eskom that will enable that shortfall for Eskom to be met. I mean, clearly there's always, like always, there may be let's call it a period of consultation or negotiation on what's the price that's required. But I would be more concerned if I was running in the Mpumalanga area and you've got export coal that is getting closer and closer to the quality that can be used in power stations, because I think that's where the conflict's going to be the greatest.
John, you alluded to a short while ago the risks that come with being a junior miner, scale and liability as well. What do you make of Eskom's plans to procure more from junior miners and set up a development fund for these miners as well?
I think it's encouraging and it's good. I mean, the difficulty here is the position that we're in the country, where we need to try and, as you know that we need to keep power costs down and escalation down, and the fact that sourcing coal from a lot of these juniors is going to be very difficult at lower costs. So it's going to be a challenge commercially more than anything. I think strategically it's the right decision, and it will certainly assist companies like ourselves.